My name is Maria Lopez Twena, and I'm the author of the children's book and video series, MariVi, the Master Navigator, and the creator of this new podcast, Navigating Dos Mares, or Navigating Two Seas. MariVi, the Master Navigator book and video series was created to help children as they navigate life growing up with two cultures and two languages. This podcast, Navigating Dos Mares, was created to help us older kids, or the adult children of immigrants, better understand our childhood experiences and the impact that they've had on our lives. On our last podcast, we pulled excerpts from my first book, School Crossing. Our main character, MariVi, was getting dressed for school with her mama and abuelita helping her. Then she had her name changed to Mary Paz when she got to school, and she had a misunderstanding when it came to her assignment. All seminal events in her childhood, informed by the different values of Latin America and the U.S. In this podcast, we're going to explore some other events that happened in the first book and discuss the meaning behind them in a little more detail. So I'm going to start reading from the book, It's Lunchtime, and I quote, "As I slowly opened my brown paper bag, I noticed that I was the only one at my table without an actual lunchbox. I realized that everyone else was opening a cool lunchbox with cartoon characters on the front, and that the lunch they had inside was not what I had inside of my brown paper bag. Even my lunch was different. All of my classmates had sandwiches in their lunchboxes, peanut butter and jelly, bologna, ham and cheese, or tuna. And they all had a bag of crunchy potato chips of some kind and a fruit. 2 of them had a chocolate candy bar for dessert, and 2 had cookies. Chocolate chip cookies, my absolute favorite. Mama never made chocolate chip cookies or any cookies. Mama's idea of dessert was a flan or a custard, sometimes with rice in it, but never a cookie. I asked her why she never made cookies, and she said it was because she never had cookies as a child, and she wasn't interested in making them. My lunch bag contained a small bowl of rice with black beans and some bananas. Not regular bananas, but something called plátanos dulces, which means sweet plantains. We had had them the night before for dinner. Last night they had tasted delicious, but today my tummy hurt just thinking about eating one. Everyone stared at my lunch and started making faces. Yuck, they said. They started making fun of my lunch. 2 of them had never eaten a black bean before, and none of them had ever seen a plantain like the one I had in my bowl. Debbie, my classmate, said, "That doesn't look like a banana, so it can't be a banana." I quickly put my lunch away without taking a single bite and threw it away as I walked outside. End quote. There's a lot here to unpack, so let's spend a little time on what happened at lunch. MariVi goes to lunch and is reminded again of how different she is from everyone else. She may be dressed the same, be the same age, and come from the same neighborhood, but she looks different than her classmates, and now she discovers her food is different. And though she's hungry, she's willing to starve herself of her cultural food, if you will, in order to blend with the other kids. By denying her cultural food, this is one of many steps taken to separate herself from her culture. As we discussed in the first episode, it typically happens with immigrant children. They start stepping away from their culture because of small events like this, only to return later in adulthood. But back to the story, the kids are making fun of her food and even challenge that what she's learned at home is accurate. "That's not a banana," her classmate says at lunch. Yes, MariVi has been told at home that it is a banana. So truth is being challenged at the moment, and her culture is being challenged, overtly and covertly. It all leads to feelings yet again of being an outsider, so she'd rather go hungry than continue to consume her culture. By consuming her cultural food, she literally embodies her culture. Everyone I know who has lived this experience of having a different lunch at school speaks about the feelings of solitude, confusion, and even anger. Some had even gone to the bathroom as kids to eat their lunches in order to avoid the pain and hurt, or others went outside to eat alone. This experience of eating alone is extremely foreign to a Hispanic kid. At home, they never eat alone. Meal times are always communal. You only eat outside of family mealtime if you've been punished. MariVi decided to take a different course. She decided at that moment that she'd rather go hungry, starving herself of her culture in order to fit in. Let's also discuss the fact that MariVi had asked her mama to make chocolate chip cookies, and that was denied as well. Yet she really loves chocolate chip cookies. So what's going on here? At the surface, it feels like mama doesn't want to bake cookies. The question is why? There are many answers. She's never made them. She's not comfortable making them. She thinks she won't make them correctly. I believe the answer lies in the culture. Mama wants to keep the household as collective and Latin American as possible so that MariVi and her siblings keep their culture. Food is paramount to the Latino community, just like music is. By introducing baking chocolate chip cookies into the kitchen, there is some adopting of American culture taking place. And Mama doesn't want to feed MariVi American culture. She doesn't want to nurture or nourish it at all. Regardless of the reason, all MariVi realizes to a small degree is that her Latin American food makes her feel like an outsider at school, and the American food that she yearns is kept out of her mother's Latin American kitchen. But if you zoom out, this represents something much greater, a struggle between two cultures at a very young age, an age where a child can't make sense of what's happening. They don't have the words to explain it or the context to understand it. But what it leads to is the suspended state of a young native immigrant in the U.S., and it reinforces the very important human need to belong somewhere. The genesis of the desire to move away from her Latin American roots is evidenced here. Finally, I'd like to share one more excerpt from the book School Crossing. Let me set this up. MariVi has now eaten lunch. She's made a new friend at recess, ate popcorn that her friend shared with her, and is back in the classroom after drinking a lot of water from the water fountain. Quote, I should have realized my tummy was full by the time I got to my classroom, but I didn't. And even though the first thing Mrs. Smith told us that morning was to raise your hand if you need to go to the bathroom, I didn't. In fact, I couldn't. I didn't want anyone to notice me. So after lunch, after not going to the bathroom all day, I went inside the cloakroom where we kept our school bags to get a new pencil and paper for class, and before I knew it, I felt something dripping down my legs, and I couldn't make it stop, no matter how hard I tried. As the liquid dribbled down my legs, the tears rolled down my cheeks at the same time. And when I finally could open my eyes, all I could see were my classmates staring at me, and all I could hear was their loud laughter. Since Mama spoke very little English and Mrs. Smith didn't speak Spanish, there was a lot of confusion when Mrs. Smith called to tell her, "Your daughter Mary has had an accident at school." Mama told me later that when she heard the word accident, very close to accidente in Spanish, she assumed I had been hit by a car and was seriously injured. Mama showed up in the cloakroom clutching her rosary while crying and hugging me. "Estás viva! You are alive! Gracias, Dios mío! Thank you, God." I felt like the world was telling me, you don't belong here. You don't belong anywhere. We took a cab home. As I got out, Mama asked me to find out how much it was going to cost and to pay the driver. I asked, then thanked him in English while I paid him. I had to do this kind of thing a lot, translate for Mama, pay for things, and explain things. End quote. So let's break this down. MariVi has issues raising her hand because when she raised her hand earlier to say here, she was being inauthentic, responding to a name that wasn't hers. She was also feeling insecure and was already standing out in ways that made her feel alone and uncomfortable. She didn't want to call attention to herself. This is then followed by the ultimate embarrassment of having an accident and in the cloakroom of all places. She's now totally mortified and everyone is laughing at her. She's literally on her knees and doesn't want to get up or accept help from anyone. Yes, it was an accident, but it was also the final expression of the day. She had carried a lot of shame, feelings of unworthiness, and confusion all day long. Her authentic nature had been altered, and she needed to release everything right then and there. She had been so consumed by the events of the day that taking care of her physical needs were secondary, just as she had denied herself lunch. Then her mama is called and misinterprets the situation because she doesn't have the cultural context, and MariVi isn't there to explain it. How many times has there been a misunderstanding in your own life because of words that sound like Spanish words or meant something totally different than their intent? MariVi's mom hears accidente, and all she can think about is a terrible accident. She doesn't know that in the English language, the word is also used to mean that someone has urinated outside of a bathroom. And finally, the day ends with MariVi doing what she always does, interpreting for her Spanish language dominant adult family members. A difficult task after the day she has had, but one that's assumed organically. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Think about the events we shared in your own life. Did you experience any of them or similar ones? And then ask yourself, what would you tell your 10-year-old self? And remember, life only gets better. You will find a sense of belonging and community, but your life path may return you to your roots to find it. Thanks for listening, and please join us on our next episode of Navigating Dos Mares. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at We Are MariVi, or check out our books on our website, wearemarivi.com.